The wind howled across the ridge at dawn, sharp and full of ancient anger. Elena had never felt so alone. She stared at the jagged horizon of the mountain peaks, their tips lit in pale gold, the valleys below still in shadow. She'd come here for solitude, for escape, but something about the stillness unsettled her. The mountain didn't feel empty. It felt like it was waiting. Elena had driven up the narrow switchback highway in the early morning, leaving the city behind and the hum of everyday life falling away. Her companion, her backpack and rucksack packed with minimal gear, and a sense of purpose. She was going to summit the lesser-known peak of Mount Carson, as the locals called it, a mountain ridge that few hikers dared to attempt alone. She'd read about the remote trails that wound through high alpine meadows, glaciers, and rock spires, and she liked that there were hardly any marked signs. She wanted a challenge, and she wanted silence. On the first evening, she pitched her small tent on a flat ledge overlooking a high glacial lake. The water was still, a perfect mirror of the sky, and the air was crisp with chill. She built a small fire, ate a simple meal of pasta and tea, and watched stars emerge as twilight deepened. Far off, a lone call echoed. Bird, perhaps, but maybe not. She couldn't tell. Just a sound on the wind, distant, ancient. She fell asleep with the mountain in her mind, the peaks guarding her in silence. The second day, she woke early, climbed steadily through alpine grasses and boulders, the trail growing steeper and more forbidding. By midday, the trees thinned out, giving way to rock and scree. She passed an abandoned outcrop hut, rust-stained metal, broken windows, echoing emptiness. A handwritten sign on wood, faded. No overnight after October. She shrugged it off. It was September. She was fine. Late afternoon, she reached a ridge where the sun glowed warm on her face. She paused, looking out. The valley dropped away into fog, white and shifting like a sea. The wind picked up. She heard something behind her, a cracking of rock, maybe an animal, maybe not. She turned, saw nothing but gray stone and the swirling wind. She shivered, though she was warm. She set up camp again, higher this time, near a ledge that overlooked the lake far below. The night came quickly, the temperature plunged, but the sky was clear. She lay in her sleeping bag, winds rattling the tent, and listened to the vast silence, until she heard a sound that didn't belong. A footstep? A scrape of rock? Something low and drawn out, very close. The tent fabric flapped. She sat up, torch in hand, peered out. Nothing. Just darkness, and the mountain breathing. Her heart beat faster. She told herself it was the mountain, the wind, imagination. She closed her eyes, trying to sleep amidst the tension. At dawn the next morning, she woke to a fog creeping up the slope, thick and cold. She decided to descend, to avoid the high-altitude risk. As she packed, she moved a little too fast, slipped on scree, almost tumbled. She steadied herself, but noticed something glinting on a boulder just below her, a small piece of metal, like an old ring, perhaps, encrusted with red clay. She picked it up, curious. Engraved faintly, EC 1932. She frowned. Who had been here in 1932? In this remote high place? She slipped it into her jacket pocket. She began descent late morning, feeling uneasy. The trail looked narrower now, the scree deeper. As she rounded a bend, she caught sight of something, deep footprints in the damp ground next to the rock scree. Maybe human, maybe not. Large footprints, toes visible, but too large for a normal person. Her breath caught. She paused. The fog thickened behind her, muffling sound, swallowing shapes. She continued, more cautious now. The trail ended in a steep drop where the path turned into nothing but rock falls. She scanned for a route, saw faint cairns. She followed them slowly, carefully. Then she heard a low growl, not animal, or at least not ordinary. It vibrated through the rock. She froze. The air turned cold. Fog swirled around below her feet. She looked down into the sheer drop, the glacial lake far below. The fog parted for a moment, and she saw movement, something large, walking on two legs, tall, thin, its head low. It moved across a rock shelf opposite, half hidden in mist. Her torch beam flicked, though she didn't turn it on. She stared. It turned its head slowly, as if sensing her. For a moment, she felt its eyes on her. and then it ducked behind rock and vanished. She swallowed hard. Her instincts screamed at her to run. She backed away slowly, retracing her steps, trying not to slip. But the fog thickened around her, and the trail grew colder. Her pack felt heavy. She turned a corner and saw something, red stains on the rock, old but fresh about the edges, like dried blood still glistening. She touched the mark. It had texture. She shivered. This mountain was hiding something. Suddenly, a scream echoed from below, above. She couldn't tell. It sounded human but twisted, raw, wrong. She snapped around. Her torch in hand, she swept the slopes. The big creature was gone. She thought, maybe I hallucinated. Maybe high altitude. Maybe it's an animal. But the footprints, the ring, the blood, they didn't lie. She moved fast, descending until the trees returned. Sunlight filtered through branches. But the forest felt thin, the branches too spaced. She came across an old hunter's cabin, boarded up, door ajar. She entered. Inside, old gear, rifles rusted, journals on a shelf. She skimmed a page. We found the thing. It was taller than any man, skin pale, eyes like fire. It hunts the mountain. We climbed in 1932. It chased us back. Wind rattled windows. She backed out. She ran now, racing down the slope. The sun had dipped. Evening shadows crept. She crossed the meadow where earlier she had sat. Nothing yet. Then she heard leaves crunch behind her. She turned, nothing. She heard it again, closer. Her heartbeat raced. She broke into a sprint toward the trailhead, toward safety, but something blocked her path. A shape stepped into the moonlit clearing. Tall, thin, limbs long, head bent. It watched her. She froze. Then it moved. The motion was slow, unnatural. It stepped forward, into moonlight. Her torch beam flicked on. The creature's face was hollow, elongated, pale. No hair. Eyes deep black. Mouth thin and wide, pulled back. Not a snarl, just a grim line. It raised a hand. Long fingers curved. She screamed. She turned and fled, heart hammering, lungs burning. The creature followed. Steps silent, but always behind. She lost footing, tumbled down a slope, slid, hit rocks, blood on her arm. She scrambled up, blind in panic. The trailhead sign appeared, lit by moonlight. She ran past it into the forest down the road. She reached her car, trembling, keys in hand. Door locked. Engine started. She glanced in the rearview mirror, shining black eyes at the road's edge. She slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching, and drove down the highway, headlamps cutting through fog. She didn't stop until the highway exit that led to civilization. At the motel the next morning, she told the receptionist she needed a room for 2 nights. She locked the door, called home, crying. She looked at the ring she had kept. It lay on the motel table. The engraving clear. EC 1932. She Googled EC Mountaineer 1932 Mountain Expedition Unknown Disappearance and found a brief newspaper archive. Expedition of E. Clark 1932 to Mount Carson. Last seen alive. Never returned. Bodies never found. Below the article, a footnote. Witnesses reported tracks too large for man. Local legend. The mountain spirit. Watchers call it the Pale One. It hunts when the snow turns thin in autumn. She stared at the screen. The mountain spirit. The footprints. The blood. The ring. It was all real. The nightmares began that night. Shadow figures on the ridges, a whisper on the wind. It wasn't human. She woke soaked in sweat, scrambling for her bag, heart pounding. Weeks later, she tried to return to normal life. Workdays, emails, coffee, the city noise. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the mountain fog, the tall figure, its hollow eyes. She lost sleep. She lost peace. One evening, she found herself staring at her reflection, noticing her arms, bruised, thin scars still healing from the fall. She touched a bruise and winced. She remembered the slope, the rocks, the scream. She thought, I must go back. I must end this. A month later, she returned to the mountain alone. She carried a camera, a small drone, extra rope. She climbed the ridge again. This time she went at dawn, the air still. She reached the ledge where she had seen the creature. Fog curled up. She launched the drone. It buzzed, rose above the ridge. She watched the screen. The trail below looked deserted. Then the drone hovered near a rock ledge. The feed flickered. She zoomed. There, half hidden, the tall figure crouched watching. Eyes black. It didn't move. She swallowed. She pressed record. Suddenly the drone's feed cut. It crashed somewhere below. She heard a thunderous crack. She ran to the edge. Below, the drone lay shattered. She heard a roar, not animal. She backed away. The figure emerged above her, on a rock shelf. It stared down, fog swirling. Silence. Then it rose fully and stepped closer. The rock under its weight cracked. Elena raised her camera to capture it, but the figure turned, raised a hand. Long fingers spread. The world seemed to slow. Elena dropped to one knee, trembling. Then the figure lunged. She ducked behind a boulder, heart in her throat. It smashed onto the ledge with a force that sent gravel flying. She scrambled down, slipping, tripping, blood on her knees, desperation in her eyes. She reached the tree line, the forest still running. But the forest seemed a trap now, shadow behind shadow. She heard twig snaps, leaves rustling. The creature followed. Lightning cracked in the distance. Rain began. She reached the road. She flagged down a passing car. The driver, startled, watched as the tall figure emerged from the woods into the rain and loomed behind her windshield. She screamed. The driver floored the accelerator, splashing down the mountain road. That night she left for home. She left the mountain. But in her mind the mountain remained. And in her dreams the creature came. Years passed. She never returned. The ring stayed on her finger. She wrote an article about the expedition, the mountains, the legend of the Pale One for a small travel magazine. She warned others, this mountain is not for human trespass. She lost some friends. Some called her crazy, others curious. But one thing she knew, it wasn't human. And sometimes, on a clear night when the wind picks up, she imagines it watching her through the city lights, waiting. She closes her eyes and listens, because the mountain still whispers.